everybody. Kim Becker and Arif Dean here for your weekly Colorado Avalanche AMA brought to you by Mile High Sports. Arif, not the game we all wanted to see in Ball Arena last night after they had a lot of momentum from their shutout win over the Blackhawks, but the Avs hosted the Penguins last night and fell 5-2. Can you give us a recap on what happened?
Yeah, pretty even first period, and then Pittsburgh took over in the second. And I think the headline that I used in yesterday's article is ultimately what sticks out to me most is the Penguins were the far more desperate team. This is a team that came into the game losers of 4 straight games. Their starting goalie, who, in the grand scheme of things, is a good goalie, and Tristan Jarry had been pulled in 4 of his last 11 games. So they were really reeling. The Florida Panthers have come on hot, so they've kind of caught them in the standings and made it, a little bit of a fight there for the last wild card spot, and a battle with the Islanders for the 2 wild card spots. But the Pittsburgh Penguins were in desperate need of a victory. And after losing 4 straight games, they came out in the second period and really gave it to the Avalanche. They had 21 shots. They obviously scored 3 times. I know a lot of fans out there were upset with the refs and the penalties. I personally didn't agree with the one that Darren Helm took, the extra 2 minutes when him and Crosby were tied up. I thought there was a missed call on Bowen Byram late in the second period that should have resulted in an Avalanche 2-minute advantage. But there was a lot of missed calls aside from that. It was a pretty physical game, and I think the Penguins did what, veteran teams like that do best, and they found a way to draw penalties and then took advantage of those power plays. The Avs had, been pretty strong on the PK in recent games and just could not stop that PP yesterday. So I think, all in all, is it a game to be concerned about? Absolutely not. You just won 6 straight games. You're still in the driver's seat with a game in hand to really catch both Minnesota and Dallas. You still play both of them next week. A lot of hockey to be played in terms of determining the final standings in the Central Division and, heck, even the Western Conference. But what we saw yesterday was, a far more desperate Pittsburgh Penguins team that capitalized twice on the power play in the second period in a 10-minute stretch. And every time the Avalanche tried to make it a game, Jeff Carter came out and scored another goal, which is, not to say that the Avs couldn't do it themselves. I know Jared Bednar said post-game, he said they were a lot more desperate, but there's no reason why we couldn't play with that urgency. And, he's got a point there. But I think, just to reiterate it again, the Penguins were way more desperate, had a lot more on the line than catching first place in a division, and they needed that victory more than ever.
Okay, how many games do we have left in the regular season?
12 for the Avalanche.
12 for the Avalanche. So definitely still a handful there to make some moves to the top of the Central Division and hopefully further up in the West, like you said. So yes, we're not panicking. Although, gosh, I can't believe there's only 12 left. That sounds like
yeah, it's going really fast. But like
really fast.
When you look at the schedule that the Avalanche have left, their next 3 games, first of all, are against Arizona and then Arizona again, and then a back-to-back with the Anaheim Ducks.
Yeah.
And if you look at the league standings, the Arizona Coyotes are in 26th. Granted, they're 6-1-3 in their last 10. The Anaheim Ducks are in 29th out of 32 teams.
Okay.
After that, you have a pretty fun stretch of hockey. You got Minnesota home next Wednesday, and then you got Dallas home next Saturday, and a nice 2-day break in between. Those are going to be the 2 big games.
Yep.
And then after that, you go on the road to California, a very bad San Jose team, 31st in the NHL.
Yep.
And then you play them again. And then you have the LA Kings, who are one of those teams ahead of them in the standings. And then you play Anaheim again. So basically 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of your next 8 games, you have 3 teams ahead of you in the Western Conference in LA, Minnesota, and Dallas. And then you have 5 games against teams way, way down at the bottom of the standing. So a lot of points to be had there. And then you end the season after that with Edmonton, Winnipeg, and Nashville, which those games could have some ramifications. We'll bark up that tree in a couple of weeks, but these next 8 games, you got 3 games where you really, really got to bring your A game. And then you got 5 games where there's no excuse why you can't win every single one of them.
Still bring your A game, because we know how some of those games have gone this season. So they still absolutely need to win those.
Arizona gives the Avalanche trouble, and they have for many, many years. I don't know why that is, but it happens. It happened last year. It happened in 2021. So these next 2 games, I don't want to say are going to be a cakewalk, but you do got to bring your A game. And then San Jose, when you play them 2 times in a row, the biggest thing to remember there is it's not easy to beat a team twice in a row in the NHL. You don't often play teams one after the other. We saw it during the COVID season, and the Avs did pretty well then. But like, for example, Boston played Detroit a couple weekends ago on consecutive nights. And the first night, the Red Wings had a 2-0 lead. The Bruins came out and beat them. The next night, the Red Wings beat the Bruins. So it's not often something you can do, but I think the Avalanche obviously have a good chance to do it, and they're going to have to be sharp for that. And same thing with Arizona. Like, they have 2 games in a row against Arizona, and then in a week and a half, they got 2 games in a row against the San Jose Sharks. Like, you never see that. No. And these are 2 of the teams that are fighting for lottery spots.
Totally. Yeah, no, exactly. So you just can't look any of these games over for sure. But we'll get to some questions that some people sent into you, Eric. This first one, Darren Helm returned last night. Is there anyone else nearing a return? What is the latest news on the injury front for the Avs?
Yeah, Darren Helm was a little bit of, I don't want to say a surprise. It was just one of those things where you knew he was inching closer. He really wanted to play that game in Detroit, and he was out there on the road trip. And after the game in Detroit on Saturday, he was hanging out with, a couple of former teammates, Dylan Larkin and Henrik Zetterberg, and you knew he wanted to be there. It meant a lot to him to be there. But unfortunately, he wasn't ready for that game. Then we showed up Monday, and for morning skate, he wasn't on the ice, and we kind of were a little questioning, like a little bit concerned with why he wasn't out there. Was it another setback? Lo and behold, we found out he was sick, and then he played Wednesday. We talked to Darren yesterday, and he said he was supposed to play Monday, but, obviously woke up sick and had to push it back a couple of days. So it's great to see Darren Helm back. We are inching ever so close to Josh Manson returning to the ice, not necessarily to the lineup. He'll need a few days after he returns to the ice. I know Jared, beginning of March, said that he expects Josh to play games late March. We'll see how he does on that timeline, because they've got games on the 24th, 26th, 27th, and 29th. So unless he's playing in 6 days, he won't play a game in March. Granted, he'll probably be ready for April 1st against Dallas, which would be really, really big for the Avs to have Manson against him. Erik Johnson's also inching closer. Cale Makar's day-to-day, we could show up for morning skate on Friday and find out that he's playing, or we can find out that he's playing on Sunday. Like, he's pretty close as well. The only ones that are kind of a little bit of a ways away, obviously, Artturi Lehkonen, who broke his finger. Evan Rodriguez, who's in concussion protocol. That could be 10 days. That could be 2 weeks. That could be 2 years. You never know with those things. It doesn't seem as serious. So it might be kind of like Cale Makar's, where he misses a handful of games, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then he returns. And then Pavel Francouz, obviously, we're not really sure what's going on there. And then obviously the biggest one is Gabe Landeskog, which no updates, nothing to really report there. So with Erik Johnson, with Josh Manson, with Cale Makar, and potentially Evan Rodriguez all returning within the next, let's say, 10 days is a pretty fair estimate. The Avalanche could look a heck of a lot different than they do right now. I think the biggest thing is, they're still losing guys from the lineup. They lost Artturi Lehkonen against Montreal. 3 games later, they lost Evan Rodriguez. So you want to, I don't know how to say it, but like, you want to get guys healthy without other guys exiting the lineup, which seems to be the issue this season. So if they can find a way to stay healthy, they'll be good in gravy. But they're looking up. I mean, even without a lot of these guys, they've been winning games. They are, I believe, with the loss yesterday, they're 11-3-1 without Cale Makar in the lineup. So they're looking pretty good. So getting pretty close to Erik Johnson, Josh Manson. The other guys we'll see.
Yeah, which sounds good. Like, okay, within the next 10 days, but in 10 days, they're only going to have how many games left? I mean, that's really, we're getting down to the nitty gritty. So yeah, hopefully we can see some of these guys show back up in the next week. That would be helpful, but we will keep on rolling here with the questions. We've got one about the head coach. What are your thoughts on the Avs giving Jared Bednar a 3-year contract extension?
The most obvious of moves that you could have
Totally.
From the Avalanche today. He is an excellent coach. He's one of the best in the NHL, if not up there as one of the best in the NHL. A lot of Avalanche fans give him flack. I don't get it. I don't understand why. Jared is a pro's pro. He's great at what he does. And, as much as we want to sit there and talk about playoff upsets for a couple of years, or Curtis McDermott playing 5 minutes when he shouldn't be, you have to always look at the fact that the system that Jared Bednar implements turned a player that got bought out before the age of 25 in Val Nichushkin into a $49 million man, point per game player for stretches of his career that is one of the best forecheckers in the NHL. It's the same system that took an Arturi Lehkonen, who had never had 40 points in his career or 20 goals in his career, and turned him into a player that scored a cup-winning goal and followed it up with 20 goals, 49 points. Obviously, now he has that broken finger, but a big part of the Avalanche's lineup. It's the same system that made Philip Grubauer very rich and sent him to the Seattle Kraken, where he has less than a 900 save percentage and has been struggling since leaving this system. The same system that won a Stanley Cup with Darcy Kemper not even hitting a 900 save percentage, I believe, in the playoffs. Granted, his eye injury was the reason for that, but they were that good. The same system that turned Devon Toews from a top 4 defenseman to probably one of the best defensemen in the NHL, very underrated. The type of guy that if there was ever best on best hockey again, he would be playing on a Team Canada pairing with Cale Makar. I can go on. Like it's the same system that made Nazem Kadri turn it around a little bit, become more than a point per game guy. The same system that's giving JT Compher the ability to put up 50 plus points in a regular season, and probably going to cash out on a contract this year. Dennis Malgin is scoring goals. He wasn't with John Tavares and Mitch Marner. He is with Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen. This is all because of the system, the game, the coach that Jared Bednar is, the respect that he earns and gets from his players. It's not very easy sometimes to coach teams full of stars like the Avalanche, but he does an excellent job. And if you look at the coaches that are longest tenured in the NHL, there's a reason why they're the longest tenured. Mike Sullivan in Pittsburgh, second longest tenured coach in the NHL. He's a guy that has earned the respect of the Sidney Crosbys and the Malkins and the Letangs, and when they had Marc-Andre Fleury and guys like that. The other one is John Cooper in Tampa Bay, the longest tenured. Not enough can be said about Tampa Bay. We know who they are. We know how many stars they have. And then third on that list is Jared Bednar, playing with Mikko Rantanen, Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar, some uprising stars in Taves and Byram. He had Nazem Kadri for a bit, Gabe Landeskog. So not a lot not enough, I should say, can be said about who Jared Bednar is. Pierre LeBrun had tweeted that he's hearing that Jared Bednar is earning a little under $5 million per season, which in the NHL world is a pretty hefty contract for a coach. He deserves it. The Avs are lucky to have him. And for the next 5 playoff runs at least, assuming nothing unravels and he gets fired, Jared Bednar will be here, and he should be.
Yep, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. All right, we'll keep this moving. Which team do you think the Avs would prefer to play in the first round? Who do they match up best with, in your opinion, when it comes to the playoffs?
So I'll tell you who they probably prefer not to play. Granted, there's no team in this conference that is not beatable. The teams that they would probably not want to play are Dallas and Minnesota, just because those are the 2 teams that are up there with you in the ranking. So, winning the Central Division isn't the end all be all. And if they don't win it, it's not an upset. It's not an issue, because we saw last year the Tampa Bay Lightning, who in a division that had 3 teams at the top, an undisputed top 3 teams of Boston and Florida and Toronto, of Florida, Tampa Bay, and Toronto, they were the one that placed 3rd in that bunch. So they not only had to play a great team in the first round and then defeat them and play an even better team in the second round, they did it without home ice advantage. So if you're the Avalanche, if you look at teams like Tampa Bay and you're one of the best and you can beat the Tampa Bay Lightning because you just did 10 months ago, you should be very comfortable and very okay with not winning the division. Granted, if you win the division, you're looking at teams like Seattle, like Winnipeg, potentially Calgary, even less so, potentially Nashville. You're looking at teams that are reeling heading into the playoffs, teams that are struggling to win games, teams that are falling in the standings, that are not grabbing that wild card spot. The Winnipeg Jets are 5-4-1 in their last 10, which, if you look at it, is pretty much, it's not a good record to have this time of year, opening an opportunity for Calgary to catch them a little bit. Yet Calgary is 5-3-2 in their last 10. So they're not doing that well either. They gained 1 point over these last 10 games, where all they had to do was go on like a 7-2 run or something like that, and they could be tied with them or up there. The Seattle Kraken 6-3-1 in their last 10. They won their last game. So these teams are struggling. And preferably you want to be at the top of the Central to play one of them, because the other 6 teams that are going to make it to the playoffs in the Western Conference, the Avalanche obviously are one of them. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10. Minnesota 7-1-2. Dallas is 6-3-1. Then when you go to the Pacific, the top three in the Pacific, Vegas is 8-2 in their last 10. LA is 8-0-2. Edmonton is 8-2 with a 5-game winning streak. So if you can avoid the Minnesota and Dallas from that bunch of the top 6 and play a wild card team, you're going to look a lot better. Me personally, Seattle, Winnipeg, Calgary, I would much rather the Avalanche play Seattle than Winnipeg. Granted, I don't think Calgary is going to make it. I think it will be Seattle or Winnipeg. Winnipeg has the team that's struggling to score, but a goalie that can steal games. Seattle has depth scoring, not many all-stars on their team because it's an expansion team, but they also have goaltending that is not up to par, and that's why I think the Avalanche would prefer them.
Okay, fair. Makes sense. All right. Hard to believe. We're already talking about this, and it's really going to be right around the corner here in real life. But we've got one more question to wrap this one up. Are you expecting Sean Behrens to sign his ELC and turn pro at the conclusion of DU's run in the Frozen Four, joining the Eagles for a playoff run, possibly?
That's a good question. The thing about Sean Behrens is he's not Cale Makar-esque where he's going to jump in from college to the NHL. I think, and this season, I mean, he's been good with DU. He hasn't been like off the charts amazing. I believe he had 3 goals and 21 points in 30 games this season. In his first year, he had 3 goals, 29 points in 37 games. So, right around the same pace as a year ago. Obviously, a year ago, he ended up winning. DU won the national title in 2022. The way that I see it is if there's an opportunity for his development to grow in the AHL, he'll take that route. But if not, there's no reason to rush it, no reason to leave DU just yet, because we've seen players sign contracts too early and end up stunting their development. The Avalanche obviously don't have a spot for him right now. Maybe they will next year. Maybe they end up trading Sam Girard or in 2 years, not re-signing one of Devon Toews or Bowen Byram long-term. Like, you never know what's going to happen at that point. And if his development can be where the team wants it, he'll be on the team by then. But I think the biggest thing he should be focusing on is, does he see development in the AHL, and will the Avalanche do right by him in the AHL? Because if there's no opportunity for him with the Eagles, there's no reason for him to turn pro. In my personal opinion, I think he should play another year at DU just because, like, there's no rush.
Yeah.
When college players, and this is a thing in the NHL, when college players reach their senior year, it's a little bit of an issue for the NHL teams that hold their rights, because you can finish your senior year and then elect to become a free agent, similar to what Alex Kerfoot did and signed with the Avalanche. Or if we remember, the last DU defenseman the Avs had, Will Butcher, played his 4 years and then told the Avalanche he's not signing with them. Granted, the Avalanche first told him they weren't going to sign him. So you don't want to let it get to the senior year. Your prospects that you care for, you want them to play 3 years and sign them. That's what the Avs did with JT Compher. That's what I expect them to do with Sean Behrens.
Okay, nice. We're wrapping that one up with a little kind of a different tangent there with I like that though. Some guys coming up in the rankings here. So
it's nice. It's nice to see, because the Avs don't have many solid prospects anymore after last year's cup run. So it's good to see that they still have one in the system.
You got to think about the future a little bit. I love it. All right, Arif. Well, thank you so much. We will see everybody next week. Only 12 games left in the regular season, so we're coming down to the end here. But appreciate your insight, Arif, and hopefully we've got some good things to talk about next week.
Sounds good. We'll chat then.